Performance means speed, and it means control. Performance takes muscle and intelligence. Performance requires nerve. You must reach out beyond what you know you can do and go into uncharted territory where you are measured by your ability to adapt to an ever-changing scene. In the world of the automobile, we have grown used to the changing of shapes and design. But the biggest changes of all are happening now. We rethink what the nature of automotive performance itself is really all about. Performance, its redefinition, is causing a revolution in American cars.
This one is so dreamy. A 426 Hemi with 350 horsepower.
You know, you should have heard my pop give me the big responsibility speeches I'm peeling out at the light. So I finally let him drive, you know.
I think you might want to run slicks in back, pinstripe it, French the headlights, get it photographed. I'll bet a magazine would publish it.
You know, I gotta get some new shades. I'm sorry, did you say something, Kim?
I said French.
You know what? I just had a great idea. I gotta get some pictures taken of the car, right? I don't know, maybe send them to some magazine. Yeah. So, you know anything about photography, Kim?
A little, Johnny.
And cut. That's great. You guys are fabulous. Love it. Take a break and we'll relight. We're going to make a couple more setups. That was great. That was great. No director would ever underestimate the importance of a car in his movie. They have personalities, after all, just like actors. And the personality of the American car has changed a lot since this one was built back in 1970. The economy was booming then, and cars were more than mere transportation. They were worshipped icons, the central part of the lifestyle of young Americans like Kim and Johnny. Plus, there was a passion for the kind of freedom that went with the rush of acceleration and speed. And drag races had a way of breaking out wherever there was a traffic light or a stop sign. Have a look at this. A gigantic V8 with almost twice the horsepower of most of today's cars. Power, acceleration, the yardstick for performance, the thing these guys bragged about at their parties, was their 0 to 60 time. But then came the Arab oil embargo, the 55-mile-an-hour limit. Cars like that became dinosaurs in a new era of government regulation and fuel-efficient imports. Cars had to change, and they have. They are leaner, smarter, and come in a greater variety than a generation ago. What has not changed is that Americans who buy the new cars are still looking for performance. It's just that today, performance means a lot more than just acceleration. A car can be glamorous because it's thought to be safer than other cars. And anti-lock brake systems are an option people are buying today the way they used to go for special 4-barrel carburetors and trick shifters. Vans barely existed 20 years ago, but they're a huge market today, a market in which performance is defined not by speed, but by load capacity. How about four-wheel drive? Performance can mean being able to drive in places you could never drive before, like right past the gas pump. With me now is Tom Bryant, editor of Road and Track. Tom, welcome.
Hi, Sam.
You've been road testing cars for 20 years.
When I started, our test procedure was pretty simple. Stopwatches, tape measure. Whereas today, computerized equipment gives us much more precision, allows us to do more tests, and provide more data to satisfy our audience. This demand for solid, objective road tests continues to grow, just as manufacturers continue to explore new technologies, everything from four-wheel drive and four-wheel steering to electric cars.
Change is in the air. A new generation of car buyers is on the way, born into an age of computers and an American car market which is today supplied by parts and even whole cars from manufacturers all around the world. The number of vehicles built for special market niches is increasing, along with the amount of testing done by automotive magazines. The result? Potential car buyers not only have a bigger choice, they have more information upon which to base their choice. Nonetheless, when they do choose, it is often for the same tried and true reason.
Performance sells cars, just the way it always has. And now that Detroit is making such a wide variety of car types, It makes sense that the manufacturers find themselves racing a little of everything.
Tom, thank you. Case in point, this once humble pickup truck has been transformed through racing into one of the most exhilarating forms of transportation ever devised. Its driver, Walker Evans.
Hello, Sam.
Welcome. Your form of racing is highly specialized.
That's right. I race off-road, in the dirt. Most race cars run down the blacktop and accelerate real hard and turn left and right. Let's add a third dimension for an off-road car. It has to leap through the air and land soft. Just like throwing a marshmallow on the ground, it doesn't jump back up.
The origins of off-road racing were the great events staged in remote regions like Mexico's Baja Peninsula or the deserts of Arizona, wilderness areas until brave men like Walker began to tame them.
Even in desert racing, you do not have time to be wrestling around with a steering wheel and a lot of, you might say, rotation motion on the steering wheel. Very, very quick, very, very soft, radical steering. In other words, you sit in there and you just really drive the truck with one hand and you kind of shift and hang on with the right hand. So you're rocking and rolling down through this road and missing rocks. Your mind is a computer just constantly reading the terrain and looking out what's up front. You're hooked into that vehicle, you're a part of that vehicle. I call it rocking and rolling.
The excitement of desert racing has been repackaged into what is called off-road stadium racing, and Walker is one of the sport's very best. To develop his trucks, he has created his own personal track in the California desert.
The little truck that I race out there has 3 liters. It makes 335 horsepower, fuel injected. It's got the most sophisticated steering, very, very radical steering. It's automatic transmission. Every part of a little stadium truck, the Dodge that I drive, is very, very sophisticated. Heads and shoulders over technology of the 50s and 60s vehicles.
The stadium courses are only a little bigger than a football field, and the violence is certainly suggestive of football, with banging, bumping, and elbowing all part of the game. Manufacturers like it because it's a vivid demonstration of the toughness of their trucks, and tough is what a truck is supposed to be all about. Fans love stadium racing for the sport and excitement.
Every man, woman, and child that sits in that stands can relate to a vehicle. Dad, look at that. That's the same thing we have out in a parking lot. And when you're out there rubbing fenders and bumping and grinding, I'll tell you, every one of them are on their feet watching and hollering and yelling.
High performance has proliferated into a myriad of new forms, such as off-road racing. But the primal urge that once made drag racing so popular still exists, and drag racing as an organized sport is bigger than ever. On the top rung is Scott Jeffreyon. Scott, obviously your branch of the sport has come a long way since the days when 2 muscle cars rumbled up to a red light.
Yes, it has, Sam. The sport of drag racing has become a very high-tech industry where you need a specialist in each given area of the car, an engine specialist, along with a driveline specialist, and also a suspension specialist. And then the driver strictly does his functions of driving the car along with the public relations end of it.
But for all the specialization in the sport, the essence of drag racing is still acceleration, pure speed in a straight line for a quarter of a mile. And as Scott and his rivals are fully aware, the key to a great run is a great start.
As you know, in our sport, everything is reaction time, and races are won and lost on the starting line. You know, it's you against that racetrack, you against that Christmas tree. What you'll do is, normally you're approaching the burnout box, and the reason for doing a burnout in drag racing is strictly trying to get the tires up to temperature so the adhesion is correct, so the tires stick to the racetrack. So after you do your burnout, you'll back up, you'll pull to the starting line, you'll have your finger on a button on the steering wheel, which will keep the front brakes locked. And then what you'll do is you'll put your 1 foot on the accelerator. You'll normally bring the motor up to about 5,000 RPM. You'll start to ease up on the clutch. The car will creep forward, probably about 6 to 10 inches, and then the stage bulb is lit. You push the accelerator to the floor, and as soon as you see amber on that tree, you'll let that clutch out. If you see green, you're late. The moment you release that clutch on the starting line is a sensation like you've never felt before. Just strictly has your head pinned back to that roll cage as if, even if you wanted to, you couldn't move your head forward. And it almost feels as if, you know, your cheeks and everything are pushed back a little bit, but it's really a thrill to let that clutch out. I feel that burst of sheer acceleration.
In drag racing, performance means just one thing, acceleration. But after the acceleration comes the not-so-unimportant matter of getting slowed back down.
And normally after pulling the parachute and getting all your functions done in the car, you're normally let out a little burst because there's such energy cooped up within your body that it's just like a release. It's like you almost held your breath for a little over 7 seconds, and now all of a sudden you're just going to release a loud, you know, burst of energy.
When we come back, we'll have 12 of the world's best drivers wheel to wheel, and one man who embodies the idea of performance, Carrol Shelby. And one more thing, in a mysterious corner of the American West, I will have a chance to test a car that defines a kind of performance that makes your heart pound. In the 1980s and 90s, performance has come to take many forms. But what happens when it takes the same form? When every car is identical? This is the premise behind a racing series called IROC, the International Race of Champions. 12 cars like this one, all exactly the same. Same horsepower and handling, raced by a dozen of the best drivers in the world.
Well, first of all, you know you got 10 or 12 drivers that are supposed to be the greatest at what they do in their profession. So when you couple that up with 12 equally prepared Dodge Daytonas, the racer in him comes out. He's affectionate for speed. I mean, he's got to go as fast as he possibly can. He wants to win in everything. And you try to beat that guy and you say, hey, I'm better than those guys. I'm the best. I'm the fastest out there. And so
you just get into a mode where you're just going around by feel. You know, you're just taking all of your senses and tuning them into what the car wants and what the car needs, and you're reacting to those things. The body takes a beating. You do sweat. It's 160 degrees or so inside that car, and you sweat profusely. You're losing 5-10 pounds, and you're wrestling with this car all the time. And each time you brake, it slams you forward, and each time you acceleration slams you backwards.
There's so many things going on. You're watching the guys, you know, if they're 2 and 3 abreast, you're watching the guys that are 2 cars ahead of you, the guys right ahead of you, the guys side by side, the guys on the inside of you. And you're very much aware of what they're doing, what's happening. And, you know, then you're just trying to think all these things in less than tenths of a second. All this stuff comes together and you try and process that information.
IROC's identical cars make for great racing. But interestingly, in today's high-performance marketplace, it is diversity, not uniformity, that is the name of the game. But it wasn't always that way. Come back with me for a moment to the years that preceded the oil shortage. In a sense, it was a period of extravagance. But ironically, when the car buyer looked for performance, he really saw just one type of car, the muscle car. A limited choice, but what a choice. Muscle cars were quick, but not particularly expensive. They were glamorous, but you didn't have to be a movie star to own one. Muscle cars, they were the apotheosis of an American automotive democracy. They were cars that seemed exactly right for their times. But times changed, and soon the big engines were being replaced with smaller, more efficient ones, and the starkly functional wedge shape of pure racing cars became influential. The artists of the styling studios began to visit wind tunnels and to talk about the coefficient of friction and aerodynamic drag. Cars had once come from designers' hearts and guts. Now they were coming more from their brains. One man, however, created a car, the Cobra, that was so influential that many years after it was first built, it was still impacting the way people think about performance cars. The man, someone I have admired as long as I can remember, Carrol Shelby. Carrol, welcome.
Thank you, Sam.
When you built that first Cobra, you really shocked the sports car world.
Well, Sam, cars were getting so refined and complicated that we decided to go the other way. We took the big engine and a very simple chassis and made it affordable.
What's interesting to me is the way its brutal look has continued to look contemporary even as modern performance cars have become increasingly high-tech.
A lot of cars look good for a while, but then they fade out of style. Very few are really durable.
Well, of course, one that was your first Cobra.